Something I'm getting increasingly irritated at nowadays is people saying, instead of reading Harry Potter, read this other kid fantasy novel. It doesn't work because the people like me who've already read Harry Potter and grew up with it are no longer children. So now when I read about 11-year-olds going on fantastical adventures, I spend most of the time screaming at the adults in the story to call Child Protective Services. I still don't hate on the people who make those tweets or blog posts because I know they're not made for me. They're made for children who haven't read Harry Potter yet, and not as condemnations of adults who did read Harry Potter, and on the rare occasion that they are, the block button is a friend. Just because I'm more into sci-fi and horror now doesn't mean that people who like fantasy don't exist or that they should be discounted. By the way, read and watch Annihilation because it's terrifying, it's interesting, and Tessa Thompson is pretty. Anyways, Turning Red. I'll be honest, I didn't actually finish the movie itself. Everything after Ming found her daughter's fan art, I know, because of GIFs on Tumblr. I saw that scene and I immediately had to stop the film just to keep myself from cringing to death at the thought of my mom finding my old Harry Potter or Twilight fan work. The best part about being a fanfic writer instead of a fan artist is when someone who has authority over you finds your notebook full of terrible porn. It takes time before they realize what they're reading, and that's assuming they can even read your handwriting, which is like half the reason I learned cursive. I mean, looking at a piece of fan art will tell you exactly who that dick is meant to drill into. Thankfully, I no longer have to worry about this because the erotica I churned out during puberty died when LiveJournal did. So I have no intentions of sharing my AO3 account here, and wow, that was a tangent and a half. My god, okay. So this movie definitely spoke to me, even though I'm an adult now. The child protagonists I read about as a child aren't child protagonists to me. They are equals because I was around their age when I first read about them, but I can still empathize with new child protagonists because I remember what it was like for me to be a child, and they hit all those points pretty well. I cried just looking at GIFs at the end because my mother and I never had that conversation. And sure, that scene in the forest where May and Ming were the same age, and oh my god, this is going to require a lot of takes because I can already feel the tears welling up. It reminds me of the times that my mother and I rode in a car together by ourselves. It got to the point where I hated riding in a car with my family members because I knew it was always going to turn into an improv therapy session, and I'm not sure if this specific kind of adultification is unique to the oldest daughter of an Asian family or not. I mean, it's not quite adultification because my parents never expected me to take care of the household or my siblings the way that they did. Rather, they would get frustrated when this happened because time spent cooking or cleaning was time not spent studying. At least until I graduated high school, at which point everything was about home ec. Anyways, whether it was because I was the eldest daughter or not, and I suspect it was, this seems like a pretty common thing among eldest daughters in Asian families, and it was something we didn't talk about until this movie came out. With the benefit of perspective, now that we're adults, we can see that it was pretty fucked up, and we can change that cycle. I personally plan on changing this cycle by having a therapist and not having children, but we'll see what happens as the years go by. Still, I can look at new iterations of these stories from the same perspective because I have no interest in reliving my teenage years, so I mostly avoid young adult stories I haven't read before, but I can still relate to the experiences, even if I don't necessarily share them. I just find it uncomfortable too, and that is the extent to which I can understand finding Turning Red exhausting. It is exhausting to be uncomfortable for this long, but that discomfort results from relating too closely to May, not from not relating to her at all. There's lots of things she does in the movie that I never did as a girl, like liking boy bands, and actually to a large extent liking Twilight. For most of my childhood, I hated things like Twilight solely because there were things that teenage girls liked, and things that teenage girls like are bad. Finally, menstruation. It's thought of as disgusting or overly sexual due to its nature of coming from a reproductive organ, both because of misogyny around women's bodies and a general distaste for discussing sex among young adults. There's a lot of conversation about exposure to sex in media targeted towards young adults, but they mostly center around how to shield their eyes until they reach that magical age of 18 and are allowed to be aware of sex, when most teenagers are aware of sex from a much younger age because teenagers have bodies. They'll want to have it after puberty, so taking away their ability to learn how to have it safely isn't going to stop them from having sex so much as it's going to keep them ignorant of sexual agency and consent. I mean, I did just admit to writing porny fanfic as a teenager based on nothing but guesswork, which is why it's terrible. I started my period one summer before I even left elementary school. While watching the scene in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets where Mrs. Norris is discovered hanging on a wall covered in bloody writing, hilariously enough. If I didn't already know what puberty was, I would have had no idea why there were brown stains in my underwear. Even with preparation, it took me a while to realize it was blood and not crap, and that it was normal. I called my mother at work. She told me where the tampons were and walked me through putting one in. I apologized for wasting one when I messed it up the first time, and she apologized for not being there to help me. But we got there in the end, and at that age, I wasn't ready to have sex, but I still needed to know that my body was changing and what exactly those changes meant. I'm immensely lucky to have gotten that kind of sex ed, to have parents who didn't judge me for having sexual organs like everyone does, but some women are judged negatively for some reason. And of course, teenagers are still going to encounter things that make them uncomfortable, regardless of how much instruction authority figures around them give them, which is why it's so important to teach them how to self-regulate. Wholesale banning of anything that could make them uncomfortable will never, ever teach them that. People in general need to learn how to self-reflect and know when something is causing them discomfort and why that is, so we know what we're ready for and what we're not. The leap from bad to banned is a leap made from a lack of nuance, not anything to do with the actual content being banned. Young adult media that makes one person uncomfortable may make someone else feel validated in their experience. Nothing is one size fits all. There's nothing inherently wrong with having sex, wanting to have sex, menstruating early, menstruating late, having reproductive organs, and teenagers need to overcome the stigma of their own bodies in order to be ready to accept the way that sex actually works when they do reach adulthood. This issue isn't black and white, and red in some spots. Bye-bye.